Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of RC Retirement. This episode we are going to finally finish off the series on officer retention boards. I know I said that last time, but as I said at the end of the last episode, there was a lot of material here and it just got overwhelming. So this time we're actually going to finish it up, and hopefully without too much confusion and deer in the headlights looks from everyone concerned, including me. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Alright, so continuing where we left off last time. Oh, and by the way, if you have not seen the first two episodes of this series, I do recommend that you back up and watch those. Otherwise, this is going to be a whole bunch of confusing mess. Just a bunch of me reading regulations, and it won't make a whole lot of sense. So do back up and watch the first two episodes, and then come back to this one. Don't just start here. Otherwise, this will be confusing. So, do yourself a favor. Alright, so, let's continue where I left off last time. I'm starting with paragraph 3-1 of the NGR. And I am reading from, I lost my place. I am reading from National Guard Regulations 635-102. And I'm going to read excerpts from it and then give a brief summary of my own opinion. And then move on. Alright, so paragraph 3-1 alpha. Board report. Reports will be prepared in the format prescribed in Appendix H, which I have provided in the show notes, to include the cover memorandum signed by the Adjutant General. All copies of the report will be forwarded to the Adjutant General. After TAG approves the board proceedings and signs the report, states will forward a copy of the board report with all enclosures to National Guard Bureau within 30 days of TAG approval. Subparagraph Bravo. Reports submitted to and verified by National Guard Bureau are final. Reports may not be altered after verification, except in the discovery of material error. Chief Personnel Policy Division is the approval authority, and that's at National Guard Bureau. Subparagraph Parenthetical 1. Board results which contain administrative errors or non-compliance with the applicable policies will be returned for corrections with a suspense date to report back to National Guard Bureau for further result and verification, for further review and verification. Parenthetical 2. Any states determined as non-compliant with the established standards after notification to correct errors and refusal or failure to do so will be reported through the Deputy Director, Chief, National Guard Bureau, Army G1 to the Assistant Secretary of the Army. Nice chain there. Adjutants General will receive an official notification of noncompliance with standards from the applicable board. Subparagraph C. The states will maintain a copy of each board report for 5 years. Alright, so just a quick summary of all that. Each board is required to send reports to National Guard Bureau for review and approval. And if they, being National Guard Bureau, does not approve that report, it's sent back to the state for revision. And if that revision is not, done properly or not at all, then the state is reported through a chain all the way up through the Secretary of Defense if necessary, and then the state must maintain a copy of the report for the next 5 years. Pretty simple. Paragraph 3-2, separation period for safeguarding against premature removal from active status. The separation date may be established by the Adjutant General at any time between 90 days and 12 months after the memorandum listing the officers who were not selected for retention is approved, verified, and published. Bravo. All officers will have their federal recognition withdrawn on the same date except as provided below. 1. Officers serving on active duty orders under 10 U.S.C. 12301 Delta will be separated at the specified separation date determined for all officers by the Adjutant General or at the conclusion of the current tour of active duty, whichever is later. Traditional or Title 32 AGR officers serving on OTOT, that's one-time occasional tour orders, in the Title 10 AGR program will be separated at the specified separation date determined for all officers by the Adjutant General, or at the conclusion of the current tour of active duty, whichever is later. Officers pending evaluation by the Medical Evaluation Board or Physical Evaluation Board, as prescribed by AR 635-40, will not be separated until the final determination by the Integrated Disability Evaluation System, IDES. The separation date will be determined by IDES, or if retained by the IDES and non-selected for retention by the SRB, the separation date will be no later than 30 days following final determination by the IDES. See Appendix F, which I've included in the show notes. All officers considered by the SRB are presumed to be fit as of the start date of the board, unless otherwise identified for an MEB/PEB upon notification for consideration. As such, the MEB/PEB must have been ordered prior to the convening date of the board. Keep that in mind. 4. Officers ordered to active duty under 10 U.S.C. 12301 Hotel, Medical Active Duty Operational Support for Reserve Component Management Care. That's normally for Warrior Transition Unit or Community-Based Warrior Transition Unit orders, will not be separated until released from Title 10 orders. Subparagraph Charlie. States should ensure adequate time for replacements, retirements, personnel, and medical out-processing when determining the date for withdrawal of federal recognition. Subparagraph Delta. When officers are not approved for retention and it is later determined prior to separation that they have not completed 20 years of qualifying service or do not otherwise qualify for separation, the non-selection memorandum will be removed from all files and destroyed. In addition, the officer's name will be stricken from the board proceedings and they will return to their previous status. Alright, so my comments, even though I was adding them throughout. All officers who are non-retained must be separated on the same date unless they request an earlier date. Also, just like the enlisted boards, officers who are not retained, who are undergoing IDES reviews, are kept in service until their medical reviews are complete. The medical reviews will not keep them in service indefinitely, just as long as is needed for the medical problems to be reviewed and their final dispositions determined. And as you saw, if there is a problem and the officer was not actually supposed to have been reviewed by the SRB, they can be removed from the proceedings and returned to a duty status. So that is always a good thing. If there was a mistake, it can be remedied. So moving on, paragraph 3-3. Status of officers upon withdrawal of federal recognition. When officers have their federal recognition withdrawn under provisions of this chapter, they are processed in accordance with NGR 635-100, termination of appointment and withdrawal of federal recognition. Subparagraph Bravo. Officers qualifying for a non-regular retirement will be transferred to the retired reserve upon separation, unless the officer elects in writing to be assigned to the United States Army Reserve, USAR, Control Group, Reinforcement. Subparagraph Charlie. Officers who are not authorized to transfer, officers are not authorized to transfer to another state in the National Guard upon non-selection for retention by the SRB. Let me read that again. Officers are not authorized to transfer to another state in the National Guard upon non-selection for retention by the SRB. This also applies during the transition and separation periods. Furthermore, officers are ineligible for appointment/reappointment in another Army National Guard state once they have been previously separated by a selective retention board in accordance with NGR 600-100 and NGR 600-101. The officer's separation orders must reflect that the officer has been separated by a selective retention board. Subparagraph Delta. Officers who are not selected for retention by the SRB are not authorized to be assessed into the enlisted ranks to continue their enlisted service. So, a lot of restrictions there as I go into my comments. Non-retained officers have two choices. They may be transferred into the individual ready reserve or to the retired reserve. Which one they choose depends on whichever is best for them. For example, if an officer still needs an additional year of time in service at a particular grade in order to hold that grade into retirement, the IRR would be best, at least for 1 year, before requesting transfer to the retired reserve. Otherwise, it would probably be best to go to the retired reserve right away. Unfortunately, there are a lot of officers that want to continue their service, and there's not a way to do so. They try to revert to enlisted status, but unfortunately, that is not an option either. So, I'm sorry, guys. As they say in the old tuna commercials, sorry, Charlie, that is not an option. I wish it were, but it is not. Continuing on. Paragraph 3-4. Material errors and omissions. Officers whose record is reviewed by the board which contained errors or omitted required documents relevant to an officer's board file may be reconsidered. Subparagraph alpha. Tags may, prior to submitting final report to National Guard Bureau, reconvene boards to, subparagraph 1, reconsider files in which they determined material error was made in the record. Subparagraph 2, reconsider the cases of officers who should have been considered by a previous board but were omitted from consideration. Subparagraph Bravo. There is no formal appeal process for officers who have not been selected for retention. However, officers may request reconsideration by their tag. Officers may request reconsideration based on material errors and or omissions if all three considerations have been met. All three conditions have been met. 1. When their records contain a material error through no fault of their own or are incomplete or inaccurate. 2. Within 30 days of receipt of notice of non-selection. 3. With the understanding that reconsideration will not change the established date of withdrawal of federal recognition. All right, moving on. Subparagraph Charlie. If the state has discovered a material error after submitting the final report to National Guard Bureau, the Adjutant General must request an exception to policy to convene a new selective retention board from National Guard Bureau as necessary. If the request for a new board is approved and held, upon completion of the reconvened board, the Adjutant General must submit the required post-board documents as if the board was not reconvened, i.e. board report, any exception to policy approvals, etc. Alright, so my comments. I have never dealt with an officer who had a material error in his record during an SRB, so I can't really talk about a request for reconsideration. However, it is good to know that such a thing is available should that be necessary. Keep in mind, officers, that there is very little time to do so should that be needed. Only 30 days from the receipt of notification of non-retention. That's not a lot of time. So if this applies to you, act quickly. And if this does apply to you, I would like to hear back from you and know how this worked for you. And how did this situation fare, good or bad. So please let me know. All right, so rejoice, you're near the end. This is my crash course on officer retention boards in the National Guard, at least pertaining to those with 20 or more years of qualifying service. Later on, I'm going to talk about another type of retention board, those for non-deployable soldiers, and all of that in another episode. I hope that this long 3-part series has been informative and beneficial for you, and please pass it on to others for whom you think it will be of benefit. I do thank you for sticking through with me through all of this, and ask that you, of course, stick around for continuing episodes where we will continue to have more information about the reserve components and how they apply to you as far as the benefits you were earning and how to make them work better for you. If you would like to support my work, you can always go to patreon.com/rcretirement and apply there at whatever amount you wish. Or you can go to rcretirement.com and see on the fees for service page how I can help you personally if you have problems of your own. And if you have questions or comments, be sure to drop me an email at dj@rcretirement.com, or you can go to rcretirement.com and just click the Contact DJ link, and it will pull up an email link, and you can go from there. So, as always, thank you for being part of my audience. I hope you will join me next time. And as I always say, thank you for your service. Have a great day.
If you liked what you heard on today's episode, then please go below and give it a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to this channel. Also, please let other people know about this channel and the information it can provide for them. If you have questions or comments, then please have no qualms about posting them in the comments section below. Please remember the RC Retirement YouTube channel and the RC Retirement website are not recognized or endorsed by the Department of Defense, the Department of Veterans Affairs, or any other government agency. The information presented in these resources are for entertainment and informational purposes only. Also, the content of either of these resources should not be considered financial or legal advice. Please consult with your own legal counsel, accountant, or financial planner before making any decisions based on what you have learned here. As always, thank you for watching the RC Retirement YouTube channel.